What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 407 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR. I have my co-host with me, Alex.
Hello.
How are you doing? I missed you.
I'm good. It's been a while.
It has been a while. It is going to be worth the wait, though, because we have a great guest today. We are super excited. He is the artist and writer for image books like Murder Falcon and the Eisner-nominated Extremity. He's currently pulling double duty again on Wonder Woman Dead Earth under DC's Black Label. Joining us this week is Daniel Warren Johnson. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on.
Great to be here.
I am real excited about this one. I mentioned a little bit in pre-show, and we've said it on air a bunch of times. We tend to gush. At the end of the day, we are huge comic book fans. And this show affords us the opportunity to speak with some of our role models and people that we really look up to. And sometimes we just can't help it, and we tend to gush. And this is going to be a tough one for me not to get kind of pathetic with. But I'm pretty excited, man. Your books have been some of my favorite things over the last, 5 years or so. And it's just continuing on and on. So this is
thank
gonna
you.
I can't even explain, dude. I'm going to kick it right off with just being pathetic.
Let's get there. Let's go there.
Right?
I'm
dude,
ready.
because I remember Extremity was the first thing that I had seen and read by you. It was my introduction to your work. I remember I'm a big fan of Image comics in general. So when I see issue 1s come out, I'm like, oh, cool. I'll pick this up. Why not? It looks interesting. And I remember, I think it was Kirkman was tweeting a bunch that day, like, you need to read this book.
Awesome.
And I was like, sure, I'll read this book. It was Extremity was 12 issues.
Yes, right.
It's just from there on out, it was every month, add that one to the pull list. And then it continued on with Murder Falcon, which we're going to get into because that book has a very special place. And now with Wonder Woman Dead Earth. So I'm trying to think of where I want to get started. I know one thing that really kind of influenced this episode was the creation of your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Which gives a great kind of background look into, first off, where you came from, in a lot of your earlier videos, it's, you talked about going to art school and things like that. So I guess we can kick off, start with the YouTube channel in general. What prompted you to get that off the ground and running?
Well, I had been meaning to start a YouTube channel for a while because I was seeing a lot of how-to tutorial videos on YouTube and stuff. I mean, there are tons of them. They have tons of views. But I noticed that they weren't actually being done by anybody really in comics. It was mostly animation or concept art or digital art. And, not a knock on any of those artists, rock and roll, right? Do what you do. But I thought, man, it looks like there's some space in the YouTube market for somebody who has kind of, I don't know. There's a little bit of a rock star element with comic book artists, if that makes sense. It's different because you're not so much part of an industry, as if you were in concept art or animation. Mm-hmm. Kind of almost like a lone wolf vibe, if that makes sense. So I just felt like that kind of singular vision would translate well to a YouTube audience. So I'd always, sitting down with my wife at dinner, I really should start a YouTube channel and just got to spend the money to get the equipment and get it all rolling, and learn how to edit because I had to teach myself. And it just took the pandemic for it to happen. So we got locked down, and I was like, okay, time to buy a camera. And finally put into motion what I'd been wanting to do for at least a year. And so, obviously I wish that I had all the time in the world to really devote to it, but it is a secondary thing to my actual job, which is, writing and drawing comics. So I wanted to just as easily as possible bring people into the process and show them visually, not just with a podcast, because I feel like a lot of comic book people are starting podcasts for whatever reason, which I'm all about. But I work in a visual medium, so I feel like people want that visual aspect to come along with the me talking. So thus the YouTube channel was born.
And it's great because it offers a variety as well. It's not just, like you said, it's just like the podcast that Alex and I do. It's just us talking. We've attempted to do some video stuff, but ultimately we just end up defaulting back to talking into microphones again because it's what we seem to be best at.
And that works great. I love podcasts. I just knew I had this kind of thing in my head of what I thought would really work, and it just involved video.
Right. Absolutely.
And sure enough, a lot of the comments are because I've been trying to figure out, it's a learning process. Do I do a time lapse thing where it's kind of sped up with music? Do I not? And everybody's like, "Oh, we don't want the time lapse. We just want you to draw like normal, so we can put it on in the background while we draw."
Exactly. That was going to be my next point. Was YouTube, as for a lot of people, myself included, has turned into if you'll excuse my language here for a second, it's just turned into a put it on and fuck off type of thing.
Yeah.
It's just something on in the background while I'm organizing my comics. Or last night I was attempting to do some home exercising, and it's I need something to kind of distract me from how miserable I am exercising.
Yep.
So I'll just pop something on YouTube, and whether it's a let's play or someone drawing, which to me is one of the most relaxing things, is watching someone draw. It affords that, because you can do the episodes where you're vlogging and you're talking, but you can also do I'm just going to draw. And Alex and I were talking about that before we connected with you, because there are episodes where it's talking and going through, like the sketchbook tour in your second episode was, I thought was fantastic. I love that video because it was equal parts, it was funny, but it was also retrospective, and it shows the journey that you've we'll get into that in a second. But it was, we were talking about how one episode you'll be talking a lot and the next episode it's just quiet. It's just drawing. And you have the ability to mix it up, with your channel.
Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, I still really feel like I don't know what I'm doing, but thank you for those words. I'll do about that.
With the was doing something like the Alex, go ahead. You had a question.
Did you have that aesthetic and that vibe set in your head when you started, or was it something you wanted to work into? Because your intro music and your black and white and what you're doing there, and your just the text framing, and I go, I could really vibe to this. This is really chill. And then as you lead into it, was that your intent from the beginning, or did you know that's what you wanted, or did you have to practice and fall into it?
I think for the most part, it was something that I kind of knew what I wanted to see. One thing I'm noticing about YouTube, and as the internet grows, is it's very it has to look a certain way and smash that like button and give me a subscribe. And it's almost like the YouTube creators have been kind of conditioned to act a certain way. And since this is not my main gig, I'm not trying to do YouTube for real. Mm-hmm. I'm able to kind of approach it in a little bit more of a relaxed way, and I'm hoping that is translating. Because it's just, I do the episodes when I can. You'll notice I haven't done my second episode of my sketchbook drawing because I just haven't had time. Most of the time with the way my schedule is, it's just enough time to set up the camera equipment and hit go live as I maybe draw a commission. And then, on Friday mornings, it's me hastily piecing together a Photoshop document of some stuff I want to talk about. But, because it's secondary, I don't think about it as much. And B, it's I can just do whatever I want. And there's no real goal of monetizing it at all. I just wanted people to be able to approach it and enjoy it and be able to hopefully learn something.
It's clear that you're also a collector of a wide variety of things.
It's true.
Because just looking, it's that's also my room. That's a couple of my rooms. There's figures, there's books everywhere. There's no open wall space. There's frames and just pages everywhere. There's loose papers of sketches. Was there ever a moment, because collectors have a thing of like, well, there's a secretive, the Ron Swanson, like, I don't want anyone to know I have this, versus like, well, I need to show this off somehow.
Right. Oh, you mean like with like?
Well, I can look in your room and like there's framed art going up that staircase, and I'm like, what are those? what you got? What you got, Daniel?
So that's another thing for like an episode where I'm gonna like go through some of my original art collection piece by piece. Again, I just like need to find the time. I need to, you know what I need? I need the pandemic to go away so I can get an intern to come in here and just shoot a ton of B-roll of my original art. And like I'm gonna like teach them how to edit, but I can't do that right now. But it's coming. It's definitely coming. Like I feel like this whole studio, I could like have like a 3-part series of like just talking about different things that are just random. Mm-hmm. I do have a few friends who are videographers, so I need to get like a mic that'll travel with me, and then just have them shoot me as I just like tell stories about random things in my studio.
I'd watch that. I mean, do you see once, hopefully, fingers crossed, the pandemic and all that has subsided and we're able to go to shows again, do you see the YouTube channel traveling with you to shows? Were you ever planning on making videos at shows and things like that?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. That was like one of the main things I was thinking about before the pandemic, honestly. And I started with a GoPro because I thought I could do it all on a GoPro, and it's obviously not the case, but I could definitely see myself like throwing the GoPro in the suitcase, and I have a nice shotgun mic that I bought. I just bring that with me, set up a little tripod, wide angle lens, and have a conversation with a few of my favorite artists. I think that'd be really cool.
That would be, I personally, that's the content that I would subscribe for. But I mean, you heard it. Mash that subscribe button. Go on YouTube, search Daniel Warren Johnson. It's the chill channel without the obnoxious thumbnails. That's like another subculture of YouTube, and like that's how YouTubers diss each other and make fun of it. Yo, your thumbnail game is trash. Can you make a good
gosh. I don't know anything about that. And also, it's like I only have 3,000 subscribers, so like I'm below the threshold where YouTube starts like putting like ads in my videos. So like it's nice and chill. Like there's no ads. It's just come on over and hang out.
It's a very good time. It's a very relaxing thing, but it's also informative and also fun. Just like I had mentioned, with the sketchbook tour, which was the second video you would put out, which I thought was rad because it doesn't seem like you have a problem laughing at yourself.
I do not.
Right? It doesn't, you're able to critique yourself, and it's also refreshing because you'll flip a page and like you'll critique it a little bit and be like, you know what? I still love this. This is awesome. Like, this is a good drawing. Go me, And there's a lot of self-deprecation, and I get that. Alex and I thrive on that. But it is also refreshing to see an artist be like, yeah, I'm really proud of this. Like 13 years ago or whatever it was, Daniel, knew what he was doing in this one.
Yep. Yeah, there are a few moments in my sketchbooks where I'm like, dang, how do I channel that old energy? And then there are other times where it's like, wow, I've come so far. This is the worst drawing I've ever done. But it's kind of a double whammy, which is hopefully something the YouTube channel is highlighting, especially with those videos, is like, I another reason that like I have these sketchbooks and I keep adding to them is that as the years go on, it is like a really great lesson that I need to keep learning, because I always forget, is just how far I truly have come, like as an artist, because when I do look at that stuff, I'm like, this is so embarrassing. There were a few drawings in there that were so bad I actually had to edit them out. I was like, no, this cannot stand. I will not do this. So like that's only like it was only 1 or 2 drawings. So I did edit it a little bit, but like, when you see those, you're like, man, if I were to draw that again now, like, man. And I can see like, if I were to draw a like muscly person back in whatever 2006 or when I draw those things, I can see like different muscle groups that like I just kind of faked because I didn't know how to draw them.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, I almost want to go back in and like fill it in with like the correct proportions.
Just so you have the peace of mind.
Yeah, like for the longest time, like I did not learn this till like 2 months ago. The way that like when a person like if like a big muscular person like Arnold Schwarzenegger stretches his arms out so like he can show off his wingspan, the muscle that goes from like underneath the armpit that connects to like the bottom part of the bicep, I didn't know how the heck to do that. I didn't know it existed. I would just like fake it every time. I'd like put in like armpit hair or whatever. That was like the way I did that. Now I know, but
whatever works.
Yeah, well, and like it's just it's an ever ongoing process, a forever evolution.
You had mentioned in one of your
little voice in the background. That's my kiddo.
Of course, no problem. You had mentioned in one of your videos that you have 36 sketchbooks currently. Is that still about where you're at?
36 or 37, something around there. I actually went through and I labeled all of them. I numbered every single one of them, and then I found an old one that I'd forgotten about. So I had to. I called one 25B, so I wouldn't have to renumber them. So it's like 36 or 37. It's a lot. And there's definitely, you can tell there were seasons where like there's some certain sketchbooks where it's like, wow, this like there was no inspiration at this point. Usually that's at the point where I'm maybe under a deadline for a little bit, or maybe I'm having trouble creatively. It reflects in the sketchbook. And then there are other sketchbooks where it's like, dang, I was on fire. What year was this? So it is a big reflection of like where my mind was at the time.
Is there a wide berth between when you draw? Do you prefer having reference? Do you just want to make it all up as you go? Or do you have an idea that maybe you saw an album cover or reference to something else? Because you have so many books and I think I saw like a good anatomy book in one of your videos too.
Yep.
And so does it depend on the gig, or do you just know from the start if you should reference something or if you can make it up in your head, or you already have it?
I'll say that I always try to start without anything. So especially when it comes to like poses or composition ideas, I always start with nothing and then just see how far I can get. And then usually I'll use reference when it comes to like human anatomy if I'm really just having trouble making something look right, which thankfully as I've done this more and more, it has happened less and less. Because it's basically I've built this like entire visual library up in my head of like every body part, which is actually really fun. I feel kind of like I have a superpower almost. Then when I have to draw things like I don't know, like a specific kind of tank or whatever for maybe a commission, I will definitely like look it up and I'll try and find like a model of it on Google SketchUp on my iPad, and I treat it like if I had a toy that I could like spin around. So I'll have it to my left, and I'll be just looking at it and spinning it around and then just drawing it by eye from the angle that I want on the paper. And honestly, I remember there was a writer I was talking to who was like, why don't you just like put it in Photoshop and drop it in and ink over it? And I was like, because then it looks too good. And like I want to, it builds my visual, like that library that I mentioned, like this visual library. It's like, now, man, I can draw an M1 Abrams tank, basically from memory. I don't know how far that's going to get me in life, but it like, so when you are doing that, when you are like building it on a blank page, you're forcing your mind to operate in a way that is different than if like you're tracing over something, right? It's forcing you to interpret it in a way that it's still, you can tell what it is, but it's still really dynamic, and maybe it's a little wobbly, and that adds to the flavor. Because if something looks too good, then it's not really, in my opinion, there are plenty of people that'll disagree with this, but in my opinion, it's just not really cartooning to me. So cartooning is when you can take something that you know what it is, like, dang, I know, I've seen that tank before. It looks friggin' awesome. How do you make it look like that? And that's the individual thumbprint that an artist can bring but it does start with reference to a point. So, and it's one of my favorite things about drawing comics, actually, is, when I know that I get to draw something new. Like, dude, friggin' helicopters are so hard to draw. I cannot even tell you. Like, and there's this scene in Murder Falcon where there's a bunch of like Huey helicopters with speakers attached to them. Like, they're so hard to draw. It's like the subtle, like the little subtle bubbles. Like, it's basically like the front part of it is all just bubbles. You have to try and figure out how to make that look right. It's so challenging. Same with cars, especially like regular cars, like sedans, just like a normal 2013 Hyundai or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
It's like so hard to make it look good because it just looks so normal.
Would you rather draw
when
a book?
When you do draw one like that, it feels so good. Like when you draw well. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, no. It was what it is. I'm good at interrupting myself. Would you rather, I was going to ask a gag question in that, would you rather draw a book full of helicopters or a book full of bicycles? Because from what I understand, they're both terrible to draw.
Definitely helicopters, because I've had more practice. But I am planning at some point, I don't know if you guys have seen any of like Atomo's drawings that he kind of just does for fun, but he draws a lot of bicycles and he's really good at it. And so in order for me to get closer to my dream of being as good as Atomo, I need to start drawing some friggin' bicycles.
As you're describing, you're giving it your own flavor, your own touch. Like, this is building your style. So now, a fan will be able to recognize a tank that you drew versus a tank that someone else drew. Like, well,
exactly.
No, that's Danny Warren Johnson's Wonder Woman. That's not like, that's not someone else's Wonder Woman. Like, now your style and your art becomes recognizable to people, which, is a goal of a lot of artists, I imagine.
Yeah. And, dude, that's exactly the way to put it. And I can't honestly say that this is what I was shooting for at the start, but because I've done always just what has felt most natural to me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's definitely a bonus for sure.
And that's exactly where I was about to transition to, and I was going to make a point on, watching the sketchbook one. Flipping through, it's like, oh, this is when I was in my Manola phase. Yep. Obviously, you can see the shadows and all that stuff. So like, it's that crazy thing where it's like you go from, oh, I really admire this artist. Now I'm into this artist, and like you can see it in my work, and now it's like people are gonna start to see like, oh, yo, this is my Daniel Warren Johnson phase. So it's crazy how quickly it goes from like, the apprentice to the master, or whatever, however you want to put it.
Sure.
But you definitely have a unique style that, I mean, personally, I really dig it, but it is also unique in that it stands out in that it's not like the typical, even just reading through the latest issue of Dead Earth, of Wonder Woman, the new Wonder Woman book you're on. Your Superman isn't much like a Superman that you see typically in comics, and I love it.
Oh, right on.
It's just it has like, he has the trunks instead of like, the bikini and all that stuff. Like, and by the way, read Wonder Woman Dead Earth. You had mentioned in one of your videos that issue 3 is going to be amazing. And I finally got to a comic shop last week and I was able to pick it up and I read it last night. Holy shit, dude.
Can you believe they let me get away with that?
I would, like, as I was reading it, I was like, how did he pitch this? They said yes to this?
Oh, I know. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. You know what's so funny is the big point of contention with that book was the punch through the chest. Spoiler alert, sorry.
Spoilers,
everybody.
By the way.
Yeah. But so spoiler alert, ... when Wonder Woman punches Superman through the chest, like there was this alternate version that was just like very, very bloody. Like it was like Invincible level, right? Like really intense. And we had to go through like 3 different versions because DC was more worried about the image of Wonder Woman like actually killing Superman than like what she actually does to his body later.
Oh yeah.
So like I was like, so I was so mystified, you know, and like changes are always frustrating. So I can't say that I was happy about it, but as I was doing the changes, I was like, I just don't understand. If you're gonna change anything, why are we not changing the end? You know, but I think they realized that, you know, the ending of the of issue 3 was such a huge part of the tone of the book. Like, you know, it's all kind of building up to that point. You can't really change it. And also, when I did write the outline, I did say Diana kills Superman, and she finds out that she is the reason. Even if she took her gauntlets off for good, she is the reason the world is destroyed now. So, you know, that was a big thing that, you know, and you know, my outlines when I write them, you know, issue 1 will be like very clear, issue 2 a little less so, issue 3 even less so, and then issue 4 is basically a few sentences, which kind of is a double whammy because it allows me to start planning out and writing issue 1 and organically developing the rest of the story as the characters grow, and I see just how, you know, the characters are interacting and what kind of visuals I want to bring towards the ending of the book. So I'm sure the in the outline, I haven't looked at it in a long time, but it's not super specific. You know, it's not like, okay, and then at the end of issue 3, Wonder Woman does X, Y, and Z with Superman's body. You know, it's just basically Wonder Woman. I think originally it was going to be this is funny, like a little backstory. It was going to be a Warhammer. Batman was going to leave a machine behind to like destroy Superman's bones and turn it into a Warhammer. And I was like talking to my friends about this, like, this is so cool. And my friends are like, oh, that's a lot of steps. Like, you know, you got to go through a lot of loops, a lot of holes. Like, you know, you got to really work it to make that an option. And then my friend was like, why doesn't she just grab his, one of my friends told me, he's like, why doesn't she like grab like a hip bone and like carve it down and use it like a blade? It's like, whoa, bones. And I like took it to that next level.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you know, so again, so that just goes to the outline being kind of hazy, but you know, that's what gets pitched to DC because I can't make an outline that's completely set in stone because then there's too many little whatever you want to call it. There's too many little things that can happen while writing a story that will just change the outline anyway. So I would much rather have something looser and then build from the skeleton. But
Right.
yeah. So it was a blast, man. It was really fun. Can't believe they got away with it. Thank you, DC.
Do you plan on writing for yourself to draw as much as possible, or is it, you know, is there other items where you're like, no, I'll draw this for, you know, with someone else writing, or I want to write this and have someone else draw it, or do you just want to stick to, you know, you pulling double duty like Jared said earlier?
Honestly, when it comes to genre fiction, I really only have interest in writing and drawing my own stories. I feel like I've proven that I can do it pretty well, and it is still a writer's market. I mean, it just is the way it is for whatever reason. You know, writers are kind of dictating the culture of comics right now, because they can do more, which is understandable. But you know, with that title of writer, you know, there's just a lot of weight. That's my kid. A lot of weight comes with it. I know.
We
yeah. But so with that, you know, when I have that title now, which I've really fought for and has been hard to kind of bring myself into the light as a writer artist because it's kind of rare, at least in American comics, you know. So it's, and like to kind of educate comic book audiences, comic book readers, and comic book shops, like when they hear the name Daniel Warren Johnson, they think of writer artist. They think, you know. So with all of that said, with all that work that I put into it, I have no desire to leave that anytime soon. The only situation I could really see myself working with a writer is if it was a kind of if I was able to like co-write something with somebody else, something more like not nonfiction, but like just telling people stories. I've thought about like how maybe trying to amplify other people's voices and their stories and what they've gone through, and being able to, help them tell a story well, by like kind of helping them craft it and move it to where, or like edit it down to where it'll work, and then illustrating that. I don't know what that looks like. But like nothing to do with genre fiction, it'd be like, I'm interested in people's stories, and I'm not sure what that looks like. So that's a very vague answer, but yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense? Almost like, if like a person like in like that works for a newspaper would go and write about somebody who's been through something or is experiencing some part of the world in some way, but it would just be a comic version of that.
I will say, I think, and I can't remember if I mentioned this when we were already recording or not, or I think it may have just been when I was talking with Alex before we even connected. Because like your stories, like specifically Murder Falcon, you hear the title, Murder Falcon, and you see the cover of like issue 1, and it's like, that, okay, that's the Murder Falcon. and
Yep.
you read, like the kind of the premise, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is fun. This is a silly book. And then when you read it, I will say that Murder Falcon, I'm not a crier. I don't cry much. The last time I ever really cried at a piece of media was The Lion King.
Okay.
But man, Murder Falcon, I was right there, dude. I was like, it's like, it hits home, and like, I don't want to give away too much, but like, one of the main characters struggles, like it comes out that there, was an illness, and it's a terrifying illness, and he struggles with that and coping, and it's scary stuff. It's really scary, and it can hit you close to home. And like, the book got really, no pun intended, but it got like heavy real fast.
Yeah, it does.
It still has those fun elements, with like a lot of the battle sequences, and like when the band, and again, I don't want to give away too much, but Murder Falcon is one of those unexpected, like, it's fun, but it's also it can be super sad. But I guess what I'm getting at is with books like Extremity, which is where it focuses on an artist who is no longer able to kind of make their craft, and they struggle with that. And then Murder Falcon is, dealing with the past and with sickness and all that. How much of your writing, do you pull elements from your own life into your writing at all? Or is there any autobiographical portions there? Or is it just purely fiction?
Well, I kind of consider a lot of genre fiction stories to be, stories about like real things or real feelings, but then with the window dressing of sci-fi or, whatever genre Murder Falcon falls into. With Extremity, it was really born out of a fear of like losing my drawing hand, and almost like, just dealing with the possibilities of chaos in the world. Just like some things just bad shit happens, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I had never really wrestled with that stuff before, because I just was too young and stupid to ever really think about how good I had it. And when you realize, just like, man, as your life kind of comes together and things are just going well, you're all of a sudden like, wow, what if this all went away? So that's kind of where Extremity was birthed from. And then that all kind of grew out of that feeling. So, and then with my other stories, they have basically either been maybe not so much direct experiences, but, where my mind it ruminates, and what I'm maybe going through at the time maybe like influences it. I remember when I was working on Extremity, I was having a lot of health problems. Nothing as like bad as Jake goes through, but there was enough that it was like I was in chronic pain like all the time. And I'm 33 now, but I wasn't like young, but I'm like when I started Extremity, I was 2015, and I was still young, and I don't know, nothing. You're too young to have anything like physically go wrong with you, really. So like my first experience with that, and it was really shook me up. And so I kind of channeled that like anxiety into Murder Falcon. That's what fueled a lot of that. And then with Wonder Woman, I was really struggling with the idea of trust and trusting a world that maybe isn't really deserving of the trust. And how privileged a God is when they can trust the world because they're invincible, and it's their responsibility to, like, because they can trust, it's like their responsibility to love because they are so powerful. And that's kind of where Wonder Woman falls in, right? And so being a new dad and thinking about that and thinking about what would it be like for a God that has always loved the world, but it's like she's loving the world without any risk to herself. What happens when she loses her powers and she becomes almost mortal, and she is still trying to live up to the same ideals that she had held when she was invincible? So that was kind of me, like, thinking about like fatherhood and like protecting my kid, and then trying to be responsible with the world while also like looking out for my kid. And I found myself looking very much inward. And I guess it happens with all of us when we have children, is like you just start focusing inward, like on the home and on your family, and the world. It's still there, but it's just like it's a little blurrier because you're just not interacting with it as much. So I've trying to figure out how to intentionally like still interact and care for the world in a way that it matters while also still putting my family first. And what does that look like? And so all that kind of like influencing Wonder Woman in a big way. So I guess the long answer to your question would be definitely, it comes from this part of me that of me like wrestling with life in a way that, it's the only way that I know how to live life, because it's just something that has happening naturally. And then I'm trying to channel that through my stories. And I trust me, I have tried to make bullshit. I've tried to like make comics that like, maybe like you're just like, you're putting in the beats that a story needs. Like, okay, this character needs a drive going on a hero's journey. Like I've tried to like just make something that's like in a vacuum without me. And every single time it's just fallen apart because it just doesn't have the juice. And that's something that, I'm not going to critique anybody because we're all trying to make money and live our lives. But that's something I see a lot in genre fiction, is just kind of going through the motions, kind of taking the, what is known to be work, like a solid C+ story, and just putting it in as a placeholder for characters that we might recognize, in Marvel, DC, whatever, right? And it is always the stories that have always meant the most to me, whether it be movies, novels, comics, are when I can tell that the artist behind them is putting a part of themselves on the line. They're opening themselves up a little bit. It's just what's always resonated with me, and it's always stuck. I mean, there have been amazing films that, I love, and like, like all of like Tarantino movies and all those things, right? Like they're all amazing films, but it's not like when I'm on my deathbed and I'm thinking like, man, what's the best friggin' movie I've ever seen? It's not, it's not going to be Reservoir Dogs. And I'm not like trying to like flex on like, on Quentin Tarantino here. I love his movies, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. It's like the movies, it's like the films, the comics, the movies that have made me reflect back on my own life and like self-assess and say like, man, I'm so glad I'm alive, and I'm so glad I get to like reflect on, I don't know. It's getting very meta, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sometimes you can tell when it's like, are you just making this in hopes that Netflix buys it? Like, is the sole purpose of making this book just like a precursor to the Netflix series? Like, come on.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that looks like a lot of different things for a lot of people and a lot of different creators. But so I don't mean to critique anybody. I just know for me, the way that I make stuff, that's where it has to come from. Otherwise, I just don't have the energy and passion to make it to the finish line.
I gotta say, it's at least from my point of view, it's worked so far. I've been
Thanks,
a big fan of the work you've put out. I mean, I hauled every issue of Murder Falcon that I owned to New York last year, and you signed all of them. You were very kind, because I hate slamming down, a stack of books. But
oh, good.
It's just such a good book, dude. And I even got, I'm gonna flex here. I got issue 4 signed by both you and Ryan Otley, because I have the Ryan Otley variant.
Right on.
which is another thing. Like, is that rad having other artists, doing? Because I believe, did Murder Falcon have it had the pinups in the back, right?
You mean like the metal variants?
Yeah, like there was the variants, and I can't remember if there were. I might be confusing it with another book.
There were no
I might be
pinups in the
confusing
back.
it with yeah, I'm confusing it with Headlopper. That's what
Oh,
that's
right
what I'm
on.
doing.
Yep, right on.
Which, like, I kind of lump Headlopper at, like, because they're just like those independent books, like with very unique styles. And
Yep.
But anyways, but like even with like the metal covers, is it kind of like one of those childhood dreams of having other artists doing their interpretations of your work, and then things like that? Like, how did that come to be?
Honestly, the idea of it was so out there, of like that could be a thing, that honestly I never even dreamed about it when I was a kid. In no realm ever in the history of my mind was I ever thinking, man, it'd be cool if some of my peers like drew, like, anyway, like to think that any of these amazing artists I could call my peers, which is just insane just to even say out loud. So no, but it's so cool for it to have happened. And we were trying to, I don't remember if it was Skybound's idea or my idea, but Skybound has definitely made it a point to not really do the variant game. At least outside of The Walking Dead. I'm sure they did a bunch of variants for 50 and 100. But for the most part, I feel like, actually, I don't know, but that's what they told me. Anyway, so like, we're very hesitant to do variants. That's what they said. And I said, well, what about if we just did an A variant by me and then a B variant by somebody homaging like a heavy metal cover, and they just, they thought that was just the most baddest ass thing ever. And getting the art in for every cover, like, it was just so cool. It was just so cool. It's so fun. It's like, it's just like so crazy fun. It's like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, somebody is drawing Murder Falcon as like my favorite bolt thrower cover. Are you kidding me? And props to the artists, everybody that pitched in, because, it's not like I'm like, hey, draw Murder Falcon, have a good time. It's like, hey, you have to draw Murder Falcon, but they need to be inside of a case because this is a Megadeth cover. And like, some people were like, we tried to get people who we knew liked metal, but eventually, you start running out of names because there's just not that many like comic book metalheads.
Right.
But yeah, so it was such a blast.
The cover that Ryan Otley did is I believe is it Pantera that did Vulgar Display of Power?
Yep.
Nailed it. I don't want to brag too much, but I'm pretty proud of that one.
I tried to buy the original, and then he told me he drew it digitally on the plane back from Italy.
What the?
And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe could you like print out in like blue line the ink lines and just like ink it like a traditional cover? He's like, yeah, I could totally do that. It's like, awesome. And like, now I just need to get him into a corner and force him to do it because he's so busy. And when he goes to a Comic-Con, he's just drawing furiously and he wants to hang out and chill. I'm not going to make him draw Murder Falcon over again.
Right.
So I'll get him at some point. Some point he won't be busy, and I'll make him do it.
That damn Ryan Otley.
Yep.
So we've had with Extremity, there was the book that, and this is, I'm getting to a silly thing here. I don't mean to kind of whittle down your work to these basic genres here, but
I got you.
Extremity with the book that focuses on an artist, and then we have Murder Falcon, which is a book that focuses on a musician. I know that art and music are big parts of your life. So when are we going to get the book about wrestling?
Oh my gosh. It's funny you mention it.
Oh.
Yeah, right? Things are in the works. That's all I can say about that.
I was going to say, whatever you can say, but don't feel obligated to to overshare.
I'm holding things in my hands right now.
Damn it. I can't see those things.
That's the beginning of something wrestling related, but that's all I can say about it.
That is I mentioned this in pre-show a little bit. I've talked about this on our show, so obviously you don't really know about it, Daniel, but I am not talking to someone through a microphone is easy to me. We've been doing it for so long. It is what it is now. But in person, I am painfully shy and super socially awkward, especially at like conventions, because it's so many people that I look up to, and to be like, hey, I don't want to be that guy and be like, I really love your work on page 6 of Murder Falcon issue 4. What were you thinking when you drew this panel? And it, like, I don't want to be that guy, and I'm terrified that it's going to happen. But I will say, New York Comic Con last year, I typically pack light because my back can only take so much. So I usually bring a handful of things, and I set out like 3 or 4 people that I hope to meet. And I just, if I can check off those 3 or 4 people, cool. And I brought my Murder Falcon, and I was like, I want to meet Jenna Warren Johnson. And I hopped in line. And I was, like 4 or 5 people back. And then it was my turn. I was like, hey man, can you sign these? And he said, yes. And there was like 20 people behind me. And you were wearing an AEW hat, which is at the time was like, it wasn't brand new. They were mostly new. Like they had just kicked off their weekly television show with Dynamite, literally like 2 days before. And I had just gotten into AEW, and like that was the icebreaker that I needed to not be the awkward idiot that I am.
Right on.
And we talked about wrestling, and I just remember like you put the pen down and you're like, we were just talking about wrestling, and excuse me, it was fucking awesome. Because like it really helped with that, now I'm just talking with another fan about something that we both appreciate, and like we talked about Kenny Omega and how he makes wrestling fun, and it was just really cool. So like I guess I'm getting at 2 things here, because 1, I want to talk about wrestling, and then 2, I also want to say like, thank you for being so cool, especially in a convention setting, which can be stressful and tiring, and especially at a show like New York, which is gargantuan.
It is huge.
And, it's just constant, people like me and guys slamming books down and, sign this and sign that and draw this and draw that.
Well, but, dude, you're welcome. It was a blast to talk about that. And I mean, honestly, you're not the first person to kind of share the kind of like, not wanting to be that person kind of vibe. And, I can honestly say that I have never, I might be able to count, like I've been to quite a few shows, and I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of readers. I can count on one hand the amount of times where like people have not been cool. Like 99.9% of the time, people are just awesome. So, no worries. It was great. It was great to talk to you. And I really do try and make it a point to not kind of shoo through the line. If like we got something to talk about, we're going to talk about it. And like I can also say 100% of the time, I haven't had a single person complain about the line, because I feel like people know. I mean, or at least I'm trying, like, by me talking to you about wrestling or whatever, it's like the person who's like 5 people back is going to be able to tell how excited I am about it. And they know when they come and they're going to talk to me about, I don't know, friggin' spaghetti or whatever. It's like, I'm going to be right there with them. So right on, man. It was great hanging.
And, I did want to mention wrestling does seem to be a big part. It's come up in some of the Q&As that you've done. And then also you did WrestleTober for Inktober. Was that last year or the year before?
This was October of 2019, so last year.
Right. And that was right around the time when I was starting to get into it. So like there's more and more people that I recognized, because I am I don't think reformed is the right word, but when I was a kid, I was huge into wrestling. I'd watch it every day that I could, with like Monday Night Raw and Tuesday. I can't remember. There was a Tuesday show, I thought, but there was like Sunday Night Heat, and all that stuff. I'd watch it every day I could. And then I just fell out of it. It just wasn't for me anymore.
Yep.
And then like I'd watch like a pay-per-view every now and then, like, oh, a friend of mine's having a WrestleMania party. Cool. Like we've talked about WrestleMania on the show before. But like I'm not watching it week to week. It's just not really for me. And then AEW comes out, and we actually talked about wrestling a couple weeks ago. We had this big debate because a friend of ours doesn't like wrestling, so we were kind of going back and forth as to why and all that stuff. So,
Man,
and
I thought that was going to be an easy conversation. I was like, yeah, the storylines are dumb. And he comes out straight out with, so Vince used to sell steroids directly to the guys, right? And I was like, oh.
I wasn't ready for that. So,
but it was fun.
but yeah, and like in that episode, I came out straight up and I was like, I'm an AEW mark, 100%. I'm a big fan of what they've been putting out. I've been watching it weekly, so to be able to talk with you about that was rad. To see that other people are into it is also rad. Do you like what's your thoughts on the wrestling scene these days?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess I should preface with my kind of history of wrestling. You know, I would see kids walking around with 316 t-shirts in first and second grade, and I wasn't allowed to watch wrestling when I was growing up. Also, we didn't have cable, and I remember I used to go to this thing called Awana, which is like a church like church group for like kids where you like memorize Bible verses, and the number one verse that we would memorize was called John 3:16, and I would see 3:16 on these kids' t-shirts. I was like, are you like Jesus or what's up? These kids are like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? And I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's not the same thing. And I would ask my mom about it. Be like, all these kids are wearing 3:16 shirts. She's like, that's something entirely different, Daniel. Anyway, so I was never really allowed. So like I missed out on that golden age, that Attitude Era, you know. And so not golden age, but you know, that kind of that, you know, Stone Cold era or whatever.
It's like the golden age for people our age.
Yes, exactly. And it kind of passed me by, and I had never I didn't really have any friends who were really into it who would maybe kind of like guide me in. So I just it just wasn't on my radar. And then I was hanging out with Ramon Villalobos at a Comic-Con in like in a hotel room, just chilling and drawing. He was drawing this wrestler, Tetsuya Naito, and I didn't know who it was, but I saw this drawing that Ramon was doing. It was like a commission for a fan, and I was like, dude, who is that? He looks so cool. He's like, oh, this is Naito. It's like, oh man, is he like WWE? That's all I knew. And he was like, no, dude, he wrestles for New Japan. I was like, Japan? Like, what's Japan into wrestling? I didn't know anything. He's like, yeah, dude, it's huge over there. And so I just really dug his look. And there's another artist that I'm friends with, JB Rowe. He's really into New Japan, and he kind of helped guide me in and like kind of told me where to start. And I had my kind of finger on the like sign up for the New Japan thing for a while, and I was kind of like looking, and like this is back in early 2018, so it was still kind of difficult to like sign up for their service online. But anyway, so I almost did it, but I decided not to. And then my kid was born, and I was sitting on the couch like taking care of my kid in the middle of the night, you know, 'cause she wouldn't go to sleep. And I was like, it's time. Let's just check it out. And it just happened to be when G1 Climax 28 was happening. And I got to see basically the entire G1. And like I got exposed to like Kenny Omega and Tomohiro Ishii. And I remember I was watching the tournament and I was really enjoying it. But I still was like, I'm still seeing if I want to do this. And then I saw Kota Ibushi versus Tomohiro Ishii. And that match, it's what made me a wrestling fan. It's like it showed just how amazing it could be. And I hadn't even watched a minute of American wrestling to that point. So here I am. I'm thinking like, dang, New Japan's so cool. I'm gonna go over and check out WWE now.
Oh, no.
And I start checking out some of their stuff, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is nothing like what I like over in Japan. You know,
yeah,
completely different. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just stick with Japan. And then, you know, I was following New Japan, and then of course the Elite started AEW, and I was like, well, I love these guys in New Japan, so let's just see what they do in AEW. And then it was so cool because they were bringing the attitude and the fun-loving element of pro wrestling, which is something that I love, to the States, where it's like kind of catered to for an American audience, which I just thought was so cool. And for a while, you know, especially when the show started, I was kind of expecting like an American New Japan, and that's not what AEW is. It just is like really quality American wrestling. And as I'm watching AEW, I'm seeing them kind of like reference and harken back to like different parts of the glory days of like American wrestling in a really cool way. You know, like they're taking like the good parts of WCW and like the good parts of old Southern wrestling, you know, with Cody and you know, Juicin' or whatever. But I'm really appreciating it because it's kind of educating me. And so like they'll be like, you know, Jim Ross will be on AEW, will be the commentator will be talking about something, or like, man, this reminds me back in the day when I would watch so and so and so and so, and I would go back and I'd check it out and I'd be like, wow, this is actually really cool. It's this different flavor that I know. So I'm just kind of experiencing new things through the context of AEW, and I'm kind of appreciating it now on its own terms, and I am just loving it. I think it's so much fun, especially in the pandemic. You know, it's like keeping me sane. I look forward to Wednesday nights every week. And you know, I'm still watching New Japan. I watched Wrestle Kingdom and Naito getting the 2 belts. I cried. It was amazing. You know, because it was the look of Naito, it was the actual character of Naito that got me into wrestling. Period. And it was Kota Ibushi and Tomohiro Ishii that got me to stay. But it all started with Naito. So when he finally won, it was just really special. And you know, I didn't think I would get this deep in, but here I am, and my wife is going crazy. She's like, all you watch is wrestling. I know. I'm even thinking about getting into Stardom. Help me. Oh, these poor listeners are like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Did you take a
Google
chance
it. Just Google it and follow in?
Yeah. During C2E2, did you take a shot to go meet anybody?
So it's funny. Funny story about that. So DC was doing some sort of cross-promotional thing with C2E2 and AEW. They were connecting artists with AEW, so they to do these like promotional posters that they were handing out at the show for free. And sure enough, DC asked me to do MJF.
But I had saw in one of your videos there's an MJF in the background. Is that the one that you got to do?
It is. And so it's really funny. So a few things happened throughout the weekend at C2E2. I tried to go see MJF at a signing, but the line was just insane. And I tried to like kind of sweet talk the person. I was like, hey, I drew his poster. Do you think And they're like, no, bro. Like I'm like this little comic book guy, like trying to flex a little. They're like, no, it's not going to happen. So, you know, and I was busy the whole weekend, so I couldn't really hang out or get in line or whatever. So I go back, and then some other guy comes with the poster. A lot of people were bringing me the poster to sign. And as I'm signing, he's like, dude, MJF, his dad is here. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And you're like, MJF was nerding out. He was like breaking kayfabe to his dad about this poster. Everybody saw it.
That's insane, because he
Right.
never... I don't think I've ever seen him break character, ever.
Maybe he was just in character, just really enjoying the poster, just being a dick. But this guy, he seemed to know what he was talking about. He definitely had like all the accoutrement of a wrestling fan, like
Right.
shirt and stuff. He's like, dude, he was talking with his dad. He was really excited about it. I was like, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
So then maybe like it was after Revolution. After that night, I went to Revolution. I saw the whole show live. We're hanging out in a bar. And all the wrestlers are hanging out, and it's you know, we're all starstruck. And I saw MJF getting some coffee, and I went up to him, and I was like, "Oh, MJF, hey man," and he ignores me. He just doesn't say anything. I was like, "MJF, I drew your poster, man. I drew your poster." Like, and he just turns around and he walks the fuck away.
Oh.
Oh my gosh! I was like, I just got kayfabed. Or I just got like destroyed by a wrestler. Like, oh my gosh, he disrespected me, and it has made it that much more fun to watch it. Like, I felt legitimately bad. Like, he made me feel bad.
He's so good. Like,
yeah,
I would like to hear that. Like, he was like stoked about the poster. It's like, damn, it must be a damn good poster, because like homeboy never. I'd be like, more power to you for even approaching him. I would be fucking terrified to walk up to that man and try and say something,
right?
For fear of just because, like, I mean, the picture went viral of him giving like the 10-year-old kid the bird.
Hey, you know what's amazing is like I when I first started watching wrestling, like I didn't understand the importance of promos because I started with New Japan, and they do promos, but it's like kind of like they do it after the match and it's in a separate video, and it's just not, and it's all in Japanese, so I'm like I can't understand this, so but then when starting to watch American wrestling, I started recognizing when like somebody can talk, and MJF can friggin' talk. Like when he gets up there with a mic, it just is fun. It's so fun to see somebody so good at that.
And he's like 23. It's crazy.
Did you see like the singles match between MJF and Jungle Boy?
Yeah, I pretty much have seen, if it was on because it wasn't Fyter Fest, it was was it Double or Nothing?
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, I did see that one. It was insane.
Except for the last match in the Stadium Stampede. That was my match of the night. I thought that they did such a great job. And then their freaking tag match at Fyter Fest last week, it was so good. I had such a good time watching it. I popped like 4 times. Oh my gosh. Here you go. You got me talking. You got me all excited here.
This is exactly what I wanted, and my plan worked perfectly.
And I just have to ask, have you been watching the New Japan Cup at all?
I don't really know much about New Japan. Like that's something that I've been slowly getting into. My friends have been like suggesting matches to me.
He sounds
like,
disappointed.
Oh, hey, now.
All right, I require payment. Anything, my payment for doing this episode is you have to watch one match of my choosing.
Let me just get my notepad open. What am I watching?
Okay. Tomohiro Ishii. Ishii is I don't know if it's Ishii or Ishii. I should probably know that, but ISHII versus Kenny Omega, the G1 Climax 28.
28.
Yeah,
Got it.
So they have this match in it's this famous Korakuen Hall. It's this famous old school like venue right next to the Tokyo Dome. It has all this history. So many amazing matches have happened there over the years. And they have this match here. And, this kind of an odd style clash, because you have Kenny Omega, which is like very fancy and not super fancy, but, he's kind of a Artur of the wrestling world, versus Ishii, who's just basically a brawler. Like he just hits people hard, and his finisher is backdrop suplex or whatever. It's nothing special, right? He doesn't actually have a finisher name because he's just trying to knock you out. So that one is amazing. And I'm going to give you one more, which is also an Ishii match. G1 Climax 28, Ishii versus Kota Ibushi. That's what got me into it. I will say that Kota Ibushi does do a moonsault off the balcony. He just climbs up a balcony, and while he's doing it, you can see in his eyes, he doesn't even look scared. He just looks insane. He starts waving his hands up in the air to get the crowd excited,
Yeah.
Which doesn't really happen in New Japan. You don't see a lot of that interaction.
Right.
And he's just on the balcony, about to jump, and I'm like, holy shit, this guy's gonna jump off the balcony. And he does a friggin' moonsault off the balcony. Oh my god. All right, I'm just kidding. You have to watch 2 matches.
I've only seen, speaking of Ibushi, I've seen 1 or 2 matches of his, mostly clips of when he goes murder Ibushi.
Yes.
Which is the scariest thing I've ever seen.
So he goes murder Ibushi in the Ishii match.
It might be one of the ones that
heel.
I've seen. Yeah, he slaps the shit out of him.
Yeah.
It was uncomfortable.
That's amazing.
And then I've seen 2. I saw the 2. I can't remember which one's which, but I've seen 2 Omega and Okada matches. I watched the 7-star one, and then I watched one of the 6-star matches, I think.
Yep.
They're just insane. They're insane.
It's crazy. It's almost too good. It's you can't even take it in.
It's I feel I shouldn't have watched it, because now I'm just gonna hold all wrestling to that standard.
That's the thing. When I'm watching the New Japan Cup, I make sure to watch AEW before, because before I watch the New Japan stuff, because New Japan is just it's so crisp, right? They're
Right.
just they're so good at what they do.
Hmm.
But it is a different vibe. It's always going to be my favorite because it's my first love.
Right.
But you know, I just have such a deep appreciation for the passion that the people at AEW are bringing. So kind of feels a little bit like Image Comics to me, you know,
Yeah.
like the birth of Image, like kind of just doing their own thing and they're trying to make it work. And thank God for them during the pandemic. Whew.
I have a question about your WrestleTober.
Yeah.
And looking at a lot of people's art and reading comics for so long, there's times where you see someone trying. You always see people try to draw action and motion, but oftentimes you get a character standing still holding another character who's also still. And what I found in your piece is that you're really showing like this guy's doing the suplex. Like you can tell the body's stretching a bit, how he's moving. But I don't know the characters, but the one where he's dropping the guy's shoulders on his knee, and even you have a really good moonsault. And like, if someone doesn't know what's happening, they're just seeing a person floating in the air, but having to draw the motion of a character doing a flip in that direction. Is there a lot of trial and error in that, or are you just such a fan that like you can lay it out pretty easily, or how do you come to like do motion so well?
Great question. It's actually a challenge. You know, I found that like so many wrestling moves, they you know, like when we're reading like a superhero comic or even just a sci-fi comic, you know, somebody gets shot with a laser, we can just do it in one panel. It's so easy. If somebody gets punched or whatever, it's just like we have this kind of secondary language of understanding what happens in between the panels when it comes to a lot of genre fiction, because we've been conditioned as readers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to like wrestling moves and illustrating wrestling moves, it's like nobody knows, like, or I feel like I have to treat at least 75% of the people who are reading this don't necessarily have a context for what's happening. So I'm trying to distill the essence of a move down in one image, which is very challenging. So that's basically me like psychoanalyzing. You know, I'm looking up like I'm hitting pause a lot on my like New Japan subscription. You know, like watching like, okay, what is it about this that makes it look this way? Because you know, it's kind of like gymnastics. It basically is like fancy gymnastics, so especially with like the flip stuff.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out like how a body releases in that way, and how a lot of things, like, you know, with the guy doing that like moonsault off the rope, like you'll notice that middle rope is like bent upward to try and imply that he's bounced off it. You know, I'm basically just taking the most impactful parts of the move and trying to make them as fun to look at as possible. And as you know, while working on a maybe not secret project, you know, trying to figure out like, okay, if somebody's going to do like a tombstone like move or whatever, which is like I don't know what the official name of it is called, but basically you have one wrestler standing in the middle of the ring and they manage to get this other wrestler upside down, and they're holding them against their body. So this other wrestler's legs are in the air and their head is down, and it's like the most awkward looking thing if you try and draw it.
Yeah.
It looks like some weird standing 69ing sexual thing. And you know, but when you watch it in a wrestling match, it's like so cool because it's like they figured out exactly how to make it look good.
Yeah.
So it's me like psychoanalyzing, like, how do I break this down in like 2 panels, right? And so it is a challenge, and I'm glad that you recognize the challenge. Very good. Nice job, man.
Thank you.
It's neat to see. Oh, go ahead.
Even in incorporating that kind of action into your other stuff, because a while ago, Jar sent me your panel of Juggernaut just ripping Wolverine to pieces.
Oh, right on.
It's like,
which is on my YouTube channel, by the way.
Ooh.
It has me. I think I like ink the whole thing on YouTube.
I'll have to put that in the watch category.
Right on.
It's a lot of fun. The WrestleTober stuff was great. I followed that all via Instagram, which is just instagram.com, or just search Daniel Warren Art, which is our perfect segue as we get ready to wrap up here. Usually we do the, you know, where are you going to be? What appearances are you going to be at? But we're still we're we're doing the distancing. Appearances aren't really happening right now. So if people wanted to see your work, we talked about the YouTube channel. I just briefly mentioned Instagram. I know you work with Felix Comic Art, right? Is he your rep?
He's my rep.
Yes.
Yep. So you can just you can find me on the felixcomicart.com website. If you just Google Felix Comic Art, you will find me. A lot of my stuff is all of my original art that is available is for sale up there. You can also subscribe to his email newsletter, which is the best way to get notified when my commission list opens up, when I might be having a sketch sale or original art pages go on sale. A lot of times, this is what I usually say is, like, if you would like to buy any sort of original art from me, make sure you sign up for the newsletter, because sometimes I have these art drops of just like little sketches that are literally like $30 to $40. Mm-hmm. And I'm proud of them, and I'm happy to let them go at a lower price, because it's just more accessible, and I want as many people to own my art as possible. But they sell so fast that only the newsletter subscribers gets notified of like the exact time when they go on sale. So make sure to go and subscribe to his email list, and yeah.
Excellent. Any other I believe you have a website as well, just danielwarrenart.com.
Correct.
So you can go and check that out.
Yeah, if you just Google my full name, it's all my stuff is there.
You'll get it all.
That's why I have three. That's why I have to use my full name, because I've tried to go by Daniel Johnson, and there's just too many of them. But I do sound I sound kind of like I'm a dick when I say, like, oh, my name's Daniel Warren Johnson. It's like, oh, really? The third? It's like, I can't help it. It's like, look, I tried Daniel Warren. There's a concept artist named Daniel Warren. I tried Daniel Johnson. Google translates Google assumes that you're trying to find Daniel Johnston, the singer-songwriter, and they just get cut out of altogether. Like, Google literally adjusts it to Daniel Johnston. Huh. It's like, did you mean Daniel Johnston? Here you go.
Just think of yourself as the comics equivalent of Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
There you go.
So it's pretty much the same thing. Just start ignoring people and treating them like shit, and just say it's in character, and you can get away with it.
It'll get me so far.
Well, Daniel, this was a ton of fun. We can't thank you enough for giving us, a couple hours of your time. I know you're busy as hell, especially with child. So this was amazing. It's one of those instances where it's like, okay, yeah, do meet your heroes, because sometimes your heroes are cool.
Right on.
Thanks. This was so much fun. Congratulations on all the books with the continuing success of Wonder Woman. I can't wait to see what she uses that spine with. Or what she does with that spine, but congratulations, and I can't wait to see what comes next, man. It's been a blast.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So that is going to do it for this week. Again, sorry for the delay, but hopefully it's been worth it. It's been absolutely worth it for me. So until next time, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Daniel Warren Johnson.
And this has been episode 407 of Opinions May Vary. Hey everyone, if you liked that episode, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Opinions May Vary, and on Twitter and YouTube at OMV Podcast. You can also find us on Spotify or on our very own website at omvpodcast.com. And if you're looking for merch, we have stickers and pins available over at omvpodcast.bigcartel.com while supplies last. As always, thank you so much for listening. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and we will see you next time.